They say the greatest warriors were not those who fought the most battles, but those who conquered themselves. The samurai understood this better than anyone. Their way was not about violence, it was about balance, control, and truth. They followed 7 ancient laws, principles that shaped their honor and spirit for centuries. These laws were not just about battle, they were about living and dying with meaning. Today, those same laws can guide you through the chaos of modern life, helping you find focus, integrity, and peace. The first law was righteousness. To the samurai, righteousness meant living with moral clarity. Doing what was right, even when no one was watching. In battle, they knew hesitation could kill, but so could corruption. Righteousness meant walking a straight path even when surrounded by darkness. It meant being unshakable in the face of temptation, standing firm when the world bends. The samurai believed a man without had no center, no spine to hold his spirit upright. In our world today, righteousness isn't about judging others. It's about aligning your actions with your truth. It's doing what's right, not what's easy. Because when you live without integrity, your soul becomes your battlefield. The second law was courage. Courage wasn't about fearlessness. The samurai knew fear deeply, but they also knew it was not to be obeyed. Courage meant moving forward despite fear, acting with clarity when doubt whispered. They believed every act of bravery purified the soul. Courage wasn't reckless, it was measured, intelligent, and rooted in purpose. They trained to act without hesitation because hesitation is where fear breeds. The samurai knew that courage wasn't the absence of fear, it was mastery over it. In our lives, courage means having the strength to face truth, to speak when silence is easier, to walk away from comfort and step into growth. The third law was compassion. Strength without compassion is destruction. The samurai understood that power must be guided by humanity. Even on the battlefield, they saw their enemies as mirrors of themselves. Compassion was not weakness, it was wisdom. To have the ability to destroy but the discipline to choose peace, that was true mastery. Is what keeps strength pure, preventing it from turning into cruelty. In a world where dominance is mistaken for confidence, compassion remains the ultimate mark of control. The fourth law was respect and discipline. To live with was to live in awareness, to treat every action, word, and gesture as sacred. The samurai bowed before their teachers, honored their swords, and respected even their opponents. It wasn't about politeness, it was about presence. Meant living with grace in all things. Discipline was not punishment, it was liberation. Through discipline, they created rhythm, through respect, they created harmony. The samurai taught that how you do anything is how you do everything. Is remembering that your smallest actions shape your spirit. The fifth law was Makoto, honesty and sincerity. To the samurai, a man's word was sacred. Once spoken, it was already done. Lies were poison to the soul. Makoto meant that truth wasn't something to say, it was something to be. The samurai aligned their thoughts, words, and actions so deeply that deception became impossible. They knew that a sword guided by a lying hand could never strike true. In our time, honesty is rare. We hide behind masks, chasing approval instead of truth. But Makoto reminds us, sincerity is power. To live with honesty is to walk free of fear. It is to be unshakable in a world built on illusion. The sixth law was Meiyo, honor. Honor was everything. It was the invisible armor that no weapon could pierce. For the samurai, honor wasn't reputation, it was integrity when no one was watching. They lived by one rule: if this were my final act, would it reflect who I am? They carried death in one hand and honor in the other, because to live without it was to live without meaning. Meiyo means staying loyal to your values even when the world rewards betrayal. Modern society mocks honor, replacing it with convenience, but true peace comes only when your actions match your principles. The seventh law was Chugi, loyalty and purpose. To live with Chugi was to live for something beyond yourself. The samurai were loyal not because of duty, but because of devotion. They stood by their principles even when it cost them everything. Chugi meant giving your heart fully, to your purpose, your craft, your path. It was loyalty not just to people, but to truth. In today's world, where loyalty is traded for comfort, Chugi reminds us to anchor ourselves in what is eternal. Purpose gives direction. Loyalty gives strength. Together, they forge meaning. These 7 laws, righteousness, courage, compassion, respect, honesty, honor, and loyalty, were not just codes for warriors. They were blueprints for life. The samurai lived knowing that death could come at any moment, so they made each act an expression of their spirit. Their calmness came from readiness. Their peace came from principle. You don't need a sword to walk their path. You just need the courage to live by your own truth. Because the battles today aren't fought with blades, they're fought in the mind, in the choices, in the quiet discipline of the soul. The way of the samurai still whispers through time: live with honor, act with clarity, and stand for something that doesn't fade. That is how you change your life. That is how you become unbreakable.